Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that if you look at it, the years, like how slow the progression happened, and not to mention the mistakes that were quite costly. So
Mhm.
that's why I like to share in any ways that I can. Others, share my experiences, share our journey, and mentor them along the way because every person is going to be faced with different scenarios. So if you find a mentor, or find somebody that can overlook your actions, it's definitely, even if you have to pay for it, it's going to be time saving and monetary saving as well.
This is the real estate investing experience. We get it. Real estate can be rough sometimes, and that's why we bring in the experts to talk about the experiences you won't hear anywhere else with your hosts, John Cohen and Chris Grinzik.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Experience. I'm your host, Chris Grinzik, and with me, as always, is John Cohen. How are we doing, brother?
We're hanging in there. We haven't even spoken about it, but how about the Knicks?
Yeah, right? It's so funny. I gotta look at who. Somebody sent me a random message on Instagram, and it was a clip from one of our early podcasts with Farber, and we were all shitting on the Knicks about how buying courtside seats for the Nets would always be better and all this stuff. And you just sent it and said you're eating your words now. And I'm like, yeah, but who would have ever thought the Knicks would have actually been good? So
No, it's crazy. Obviously, everybody knows I'm a huge baseball fan, but as a Yankee fan and baseball being absolutely atrocious to watch, just with no fundamentals being played, I'm watching the Knicks games at night, right? I am switching from the Yankees to the Knicks. And as a Knicks fan as well, they haven't been good since the 90s, right? A brief time with, Mike Woodson, but he was too tough for players, so they fired him. But, and then coincidentally, he was the coach this year and they did great again. So no, it's, I've been meaning to talk to you about it. It's just been a really fun year. So hopefully, with everything going on in the world, at least the Knicks are decent.
Yeah,
and
of course, it's the year I leave, right?
Sense.
It's the year I leave, and it's the year you can't even go watch games, right? You can't even enjoy it.
Exactly.
So it is what it is. I really haven't watched too much either, just because I don't know. For some reason, basketball without fans is a lot worse to me than other sports, but it's pretty nice to see them actually winning for once. So we'll see what happens. Knowing us, we'll have one good year. They'll give everybody massive contracts, and then we'll be stuck for the next 5. So
that's for sure.
Yes. But nobody tuned in to hear us talk about sports, unfortunately. Maybe we'll do a separate podcast, although no one would listen because neither of us know what the hell we're talking about. So probably not the best idea in the world, but we have a great episode today. We have a great guest. I'm excited to have her on, excited to hear her story and learn from her. So with that being said, Maricela, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys. Definitely, I can use some education on the sports topics.
Don't come to us because we'll tell you all the wrong stuff. We're just,
but you make it sound fun. So it's not what you say, but how you say it. So exactly, I like the enthusiasm.
It's been a long time when it's not been fun. So when it is finally fun, it's good. But kick us off. Tell everybody, a little bit about you, your background, what you do, because you got a cool story.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for having me here. My short story is I started investing in real estate in 2006 as a house hack, and that's just all I knew back then. Went to grad school in Memphis. I'm in Texas, so I have to leave the house. So I became a second landlord. So rented out the place, came back, did more buying, ended up buying a house hacked that again. Started traveling for work, and my company was paying for my living outside of the state of Texas. So I house hacked that one, Airbnb. Then I got deployed, and while I was deployed, I started learning and educating myself on real estate investing, using it as a tool to build your wealth. And that's when I started saving, purposefully allocating funds. And when I came back, I actually went and I got 2 fourplexes. My intent was to buy one, but it came as a package. So I quickly gathered my savings and all the money I had to meet all the qualifications and down payments and everything. So from there, a year after that, I met my husband, and he was also in the real estate investing and on his own journey. So we joined our portfolios, and so from 2017 we escalated to build a portfolio of 35 doors, self-managed from distance. So lots of learning there and lots of lessons learned. Then after he retired, we are both veterans. After he retired last year, he we started to transition into multi-living, and that's what we've been doing. We are passive investors, and we are also allocating, looking for deals and getting into syndications. Along the way, we did a joint venture with a self-storage, so we also own self-storage as a joint venture, and that's kind of the short version on the real estate investing.
I love it. No, I think it's a great journey, because I think so often we talk to people, or you hear podcasts of, syndicators and raising money and doing all these massive deals. And there's so many people out there that just want to have their own portfolio, not answer to anybody, figure out how to run it themselves. So I'm really excited to have you on. What was it like starting, back in 2006? Because for me, I was in high school at the time. And I think the rise of the internet has only been in the last probably 5 to 8 years, where this community of real estate investors has really become a big thing. But I also wasn't in it at the time. So were there a lot of resources for you at the time, or did you just kind of figure it out? What was that process like?
Definitely a solopreneur, a very lonely journey from that time. And maybe partly was because I was so busy going to school. I went to school, undergrad, grad school, and then postgrad, and that time frame from 2006 to 2011. So I was quite busy just surviving in school, and so the real estate gig was kind of on the side. I didn't really look for groups or people. I didn't really have a mentor. So that's why I like to highlight how from 2017 joining my husband as a business partner, and last year we actually came to masterminds, and that has been the propelling factor for growing so fast and just expanding and diversifying. So back in the days, that wasn't a thing, and maybe again, it wasn't a purposeful reach from me, but it just wasn't as easily accessible.
I think it shows too, right? So many people are afraid to get started or afraid to jump in, and with today's resources, it's so much easier than it ever was. Like you said, you can form a mastermind, form a community, find people to that are at the same level as you to partner with, or just accountability. You can find mentors. So, to hear someone like yourself, kind of just figure it out on their own and do it. And you hear that a lot from people that have been doing it longer than 10 years. You don't want to say there's really no excuse for people to not get started, but there really isn't, right? There's so many resources out there today that help and give you a leg up that you would have never had years and years ago, and people figured it out like yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that if you look at it, the years, like how slow the progression happened, and not to mention the mistakes that were quite costly. So that's why I like to share in any ways that I can. Others, share my experiences, share our journey, and mentor them along the way, because every person is going to be faced with different scenarios. So if you find a mentor, or find somebody that can overlook your actions, it's definitely, even if you have to pay for it, it's going to be time saving and monetary saving as well.
You bring up a good point, right? How long it takes. How tough was it early on to stay patient, not get eager to buy all this stuff and, try to build up this huge portfolio? Or was it a little bit easier because, like you said, it was more on the side, and it wasn't like you were a real estate investor, 365, 24/7?
Yeah. So the growth was pretty organic. Finding a first duplex, it wasn't a purposeful investing action per se. It was like, I need a house and I don't need a big house. And I have a business background. So to me, it just makes sense not to be paying for a big house when I wasn't going to be needing it. And then a year later, finding out that I was going to go out of state to go to school, it was just the right decision to rent it out. It was easy to rent it out because it was a small, it's two bedroom, one bath. So in Austin, it's really easy to rent it as well. So I just got lucky. And then the next step was, go into a bigger house, and so everything, it was kind of pacing itself, like life happened that way. And along the way, I was making decisions that it was financially feasible. Like I never got a large, big house, because like a lot of my colleagues, that's what they did when they graduated, a pool and extra this, extra. I just never had that desire. And to me, practicality was what I was looking for. So again, when I started traveling and my company paid for my places to stay, it was just I given, like, I can rent out those rooms on Airbnb, and that's what I did. So I think every step along the way was more like financially. I wasn't making the decisions that most, and I will say this because most Americans do. They're trying to live like the next door, or like, well, I get paid this much, I can get this much. The banks are going to qualify you for a large amount of money that they don't take into considerations other expenses that you might have. I graduated with a student debt of $250,000 for an anesthesia degree. So thankfully, that degree is something that the return on investment pays back in a year, maybe 2 years, if you live to the same standards that you didn't, went and did immediate gratification. So I was very diligent with my money. I paid off that debt in 18 months. And then after that, that's when I learned that, okay, now I need to use my money. I need to invest my money where is it that I can. I was also heavily taxed. So this year we'll pay 0% and tax, because again, the strategies that we've been able to implement so that we reduce our taxes and build wealth on the side. But again, the growing happened quite progressively as my life developed, and with again the steps that the strategies that I use, knowing that I needed to get ahead, because I didn't mention this, but I came from Mexico to the States at age 23. So I was already behind the ball. And I had a degree that I couldn't use it to practice here. A degree in business, I couldn't speak the language. I didn't speak a word of it in English. So I needed to learn before I can practice. So, to me, when I graduated finally for my profession here, I felt like I was behind, and I felt like I needed to catch up. And that's when I started looking for other ways to get ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when the keeping up with the Joneses, buying the big house, is that something that, do you feel was coming from Mexico, and seeing that was just such a foreign concept that you didn't want to see it? Or do you think it's just something personal? Like, do you think it's a cultural thing or not so much?
Not so much. It also happens in Mexico, so you just have to be diligent.
Yeah.
It's always comparing one to another. So I think it's just has to be a personal thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I know, God, maybe 2 years ago now, because time's flying, I was hanging out with my friends and we were talking about him buying a house, and I was trying to explain to him that just because a mortgage broker tells you can borrow $500,000 for a house doesn't mean you should take $500,000 and borrow to buy a house. And I was also saying, just because you get 500 doesn't mean you have to put down 3.5%. You could put down 10 or 20 to be a little bit safer. And just them trying to grasp that concept of like working backwards instead of just taking what a mortgage broker gives you, because they're not looking at your whole financial picture. They're just looking at how much can I lend to this? How much can I max out on per my requirements and my restrictions so that I can make the most on a commission, right? And I think it's this problem in this country and maybe outside the country of, hey, get the biggest, get the best, get the nicest house and let me have like this really nice living area, but it's going to hamstring, your financials to the max every single month. And yeah, maybe it's, hopefully your income will rise and therefore it'll be a lower percentage, but it's the idea and the principle of leveraging up as much as you're allowed, right? Because then it'll be, okay, maybe you have the house for a few years and you start making more, but then you get nicer cars, or maybe you improve the house and you just keep spending and spending to look nicer. And I just think it's a massive problem in this country of just overspending. Like I have a big problem with it on rent too, right? When you do rent qualifications, it's like, hey, you're allowed up to like 3 times your income. Some places will do like 2.5%. And for me, that just seems like a really high amount. Like I would love to do all my properties at like 4 times, but I know it would be impossible because nobody would ever rent it. You would have such a small renter pool because everybody goes up to that max allowable, and 3x is kind of the market, but such a high amount to spend on your living situation, when really you should be saving up that money and using it for other things, in my opinion, whether it's investing or just going on vacations or, visiting family or doing different things. It doesn't have to be saving the money, but yeah, I just see it as a huge problem too.
Yeah,
Do you own those? I think you said 35 doors, correct?
correct.
Are they all in Austin, or are they in different areas?
One fourplex is in Temple, which is about an hour and 15 minutes from Austin. It's a tertiary market. And Aplex is in Killeen, also a tertiary market. And it's about an hour and 50 minutes. It's like a triangle.
Gotcha.
And the rest of them are in Austin.
Okay. And I know you had mentioned Airbnb. Do you do all Airbnbs for all your properties, or are they also just traditional rentals as well?
No, we have a combination. We currently we have 3 short-term rentals, and yeah, three of them. And we also have Section 8. We have I think 10 families that are Section 8 recipients.
Mhm.
We do corporate housing and regular traditional long-term tenants.
Gotcha. So you and your husband obviously had built up this management platform for it. How did you go through that process? How do you manage stuff that's, over an hour away and feel confident that, if a pipe bursts or if a tenant's causing problems or if something needs to get checked out, how do you put all that stuff together and, feel confident in your guys' ability to do it?
Yeah, an hour is not that far really. Like he was in I was in New York, and he was in San Diego, and we were managing or Virginia, wherever. So when it's a flight away, that's when it's a little farther. But we actually have an amazing group of just maintenance. We have different people that have been working with us for years, and so when the pipe bursted back when it iced in Texas, we got somebody to call because neither one of us was in town. So we have just several subcontractors. We don't have a full-time employee, so we'll have subcontractors. But we've been working together for a long time, and administratively, everything else you can do online. We do signing online, virtual showings. When the short-term rentals, we have the smart key so that you can change, the lock for the new guest, and you pretty much monitor when people access the unit, and we have cameras in place.
Gotcha. And when you're doing all like the changing the keys and, getting the unit ready for showing, is that you're having all your subcontractors do it, or is that you guys will stop out there, put an eye on things and just double check that things are going well?
Yeah. So see, if we are in town, we might do some of the work ourselves, or we hire, and we just on standby. But we actually do a lot of work if we are available because we enjoy it. But if we are not, we also have the team that we can activate. They have access to all the keys. They have access to all the cleaning supplies, and they pretty much they know what to do pretty much. We used to we used to GC or projects, but last summer, in June, we acquired a fourplex that was the one in Temple, and ended up renovating, doing a lot of the work ourselves. We subcontracted the plumbing and things that we are not certified to do, like plumbing, electric, HVAC, and roof and foundation, because that place was a disaster. But we did the rest of, like, we did painting, sheetrock, cabinetry, installation of the fans, and all that stuff. That was fun.
Was that stuff you already knew how to do, or did you teach yourself?
We learn along the way. YouTube University has been very helpful.
Yeah, I hear it. Was it when you were buying that property, because it was so distressed and kind of beat up, was that scary for you guys? Did you feel confident? Like, how did you approach it?
It wasn't scary. We actually like doing the value add, and like last year, I did only well, I lost my contract because it's in the hospital. You know, hospitals were just all over the place, so a lot of you know, a lot of people lost their jobs. So I lost my job in February, found that property in June, and we actually took it over in July, renovated it for 4 months. New city, just the city was a little slower with the permits and stuff like that. So it took us a little longer than when we wanted. But by December, it was rented. Started to rent, and the plan was to refinance it, and because we use the BLOC, the business line of credit, for the purchase and the renovation, we pay for it cash. So by the time we were done, we didn't have any money in it, and we have done quite a bit of work ourselves. And we were going to refinance it and pull all the money back and pay everybody. But we actually got an offer to purchase it by a group of friends and fellow investors. But no, it was not scary. The one thing that was very different there is that place was actually purchased by an investor about 2 years before we took it over, and he started doing the things himself. He has started doing sheetrock and changing the windows, like literally sealing the windows and eliminating them. But he never touched the foundation. So the foundation was a disaster. There was quite difference in the front of the building and the back of the building. Again, we were not scared of that. We have to deal with foundations. We just got the foundation person, and he went and fixed it over. That was the first thing we did. Then I learned a lot about fleas and fleas infestations because that place was a mess. So it took us probably about the first 3 weeks to get all the trash out and treat the infestation. That happened before anyone went in there to do the work, and then the foundation went in. So we just knew the layers of what subcontractor needs to be lined up and ready to go. With COVID, there was definitely a little. It was just different dealing with everybody because we needed to make sure we keep separation from there's a fourplex, so we have people in separate places. So we try to keep everybody safe and keep them working. So that was another I'll say factor that kind of set us behind a little bit, but everything lined up right, and it wasn't scary. It was actually it was fun, and just the fact that we got to put things together and then see the families move in, and we actually did a cost segregation in that place. That was the first time that we've done one. And again, we just try to make it a learning experience overall.
Was there anything going through that process besides dealing with fleas that you guys learned that was like really valuable?
Yeah, well, as far as the tasks that we did, it was a lot of learning. And the inspector was really he really took the time to explain like the codes and the changing of the codes. So a lot of construction, just overall the process of we did all AC. So learning about like what is he looking for as far as getting the AC approved, the dogs and the dogs, all that I guess that in construction as a part of it was very, we learned a lot. And as far as being patient and working together, but husband and wife in the same building, when sometimes you can get like, wait, this is not what we have planned. So we have actually we learned to work together physically, because we never been in a same heavy project together. And because when we were doing the other renovations, he would fly in over the weekend and then I'll fly in the next weekend, so we never really overlapped. So being physically in the same place working with just heavy timelines very short, and so that was challenging. So we grew a lot as a couple working together.
That's nice.
I was gonna ask that question because I think there's a lot of listeners and a lot of people, whether they're in a relationship or not, how is the dynamic of working with a husband, right? Because, if you buy a property that doesn't perform well, and, there's obviously a ton of good side, right? You get to spend more time and all that good stuff, but how's the dynamic of working with your husband, or how does that work? Or, if there is a mistake or something goes wrong, how do you guys handle those situations? Because I think that's always an interesting, topic.
Yeah. So we have learned to be very patient with each other, to remind each other that we are in the same team. Like, I remember when I was doing this by myself, there was, like you said, everything. If it was good, it was good for you. If it was bad, you're like, you felt bad, like you went through those cycles that. So having that loneliness before, like, I now appreciate that I have somebody to bounce ideas at the end of the day, or the middle of the day when things happen, like, you didn't meet an appraisal, or you didn't, whatever mistake. It's heavy, and it's very, very, I mean, it bruises your ego, if you lose money or whatever, or you at least have somebody to celebrate with. So we try to remind each other, like, very often, especially when those heated moments, like, okay, wait, let's just take a time. Like, remember, we're on the same team. Like, we literally say we are on the same team. Like, we still want to get to the same end result. Maybe the way we're doing it is not, like, it's different. Can we just revise the plan? And we time out. We just said, okay, let's stop right here. Let's revise. What are we doing? Where are we going? We're on the same team. And aside from that, we, obviously, I think communication, I know communication is a huge, huge thing in any team, whether you are married to them or not, but in a way you are financially married. So it all comes back to, we all want to achieve the same thing. So can we revise the plan? It's okay to have different opinions. It's okay to want to do it differently. And I learned that I am very impulsive when it's like, oh yeah, let's buy it. This cash offer, let's go. And he's like, wait, okay, did we do the rent analysis? So he's the analytical. I'm the let me go get it. Like, let's make it work. So we complement each other very well in that way. But if we are, so I know that some couples don't have that, and getting to that level, you're just gonna have to be very open to with each other, and remind yourself what's your big why. For us, or big why, we want of course, the rental inventory that to be sustained by itself, to allow us the time to go do medical missions. We are both in the medical field. We want to make sure that we have the time to separate ourselves from our daily operations or daily work, so that we can pay our ways and pay other people to come and help us, like, create the infrastructure so that we can bring a medical mission and community wellness to the place where I was born. That's like, so we joke around because we're like, okay, how is this going to bring the medical mission to your grandma? I'm like, okay.
Yeah, no,
I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, no, having that big why and that goal in mind, I think, is really important. Because we've mentioned it a few times, but you just kind of wander around if you don't have that, that North Star, that path to kind of follow. So having that in mind, I think, is really huge. So what made you guys change from just trying to build up your own portfolio to now looking at, the joint venture on self-storage, doing some syndication stuff? What was the decision making and thought process like there?
Yeah, that was huge. That came from being around other people that were doing already what we wanted to do. And like, so for example, in the self-storage, we don't, that's an asset that we are learning, that we don't know much about it. But as we are learning it and joining the efforts with the experts, the other two partners that we have, that's what they know, that's what they breathe, that's what they, that's their specialty. So if we were to go and educate ourselves and for years and then try to pull the trigger, it's going to take a while. So instead of doing that, we cut the percentage. We join our efforts with somebody that is already doing it, and another one that has the knowledge and the time, and we bring capital so that we can all win pretty much. And we're learning along the way. So instead of waiting and how people analyzes a certain asset for years and then 5 years later they're still analyzing, like we learned about self-storage back in probably July, and we closed on the self-storage last April. Like that's how fast things happen, because we were surrounded with people that are doing those things. So the progression, it's there. Like, where you associate yourself with others, there are going to be deals that are going to be coming to your table, and because you already have the experience, people sees you as the you know what you're doing. Obviously you build your portfolio, or you're stepping away for work like that's working already. So the credibility is there, the experience is there, and people is going to be like a magnet, creating the attraction to other people that want to be invested in invest with you.
Mm-hmm. And going through the process of starting to learn about self-storage and then actually doing the joint venture, do you feel like since doing that joint venture your knowledge has been increasing much quicker than when you just first started learning about it, or kind of a similar pace?
No, absolutely expedite. And you know how when you think about red cars and all of a sudden all you see is red cars, like
Mm-hmm.
now we're like, oh, look at this self-storage unit, like but we have weekly meetings with our team, and every week we are learning. Like we are learning how is the asset managed. We are doing the books, what are the expenses in comparison to a multi-living. Like every week we're gathering and we're learning. That wouldn't happen if we were not invested in this deal. Like that, you will listen to a podcast here and there, and then you forget about it, and a year later, yeah, I remember listening about that. So but because we are invested in it, it's obviously to our benefit to learn it, but also it brings it to the front of your brain every single week.
Mm-hmm.
What are there any other areas that you are excited to get involved with, or what you're doing now is where you want to be for a little bit of time?
Well, we are doing deals, or looking for deals to offer the opportunity for investors to come and invest. That is very exciting for us because, as I mentioned, I went to school for years, specialized in something and a skill that I only get paid if I go to work. Like I have to physically be there to work. And along with educating myself in that skill, I acquire $500,000 on debt, student debt. Thankfully, I'm out of that phase, and I have learned a new skill where I can make money, and even if I'm not there. Now, I want to provide that opportunity to medical professionals that are in the same situation, that they work really hard, that they are specialized in something that they only get paid because they have to be at the hospital. And then by the time they get home, there's no time to learn another skill or to go and try to invest in something. That's what is exciting to me, because now I'm in that position that I can step away from a hospital work. I have the knowledge to put a deal together and offer that opportunity, and I'm gonna guard their money because I know what it's like to earn it. I know what it took you to get there. I know what it's like to have all this student debt that is like pounding you and you can't get ahead. I know what it's like. So that's the opportunity for me. It's exciting to have that time and the knowledge so that I can help others to. My goal is to help 50 medical professionals, highly taxed and highly specialized, to earn or to increase their net worth by $1 million.
I love that.
How, because I'm always curious, right? I was talking about this with someone, once you start getting into real estate, kind of like the red car scenario, it's all you kind of see and talk about, especially with social media and podcasts, things like that. Is it really like very rare for people like medical professionals to even, be talking about real estate or be interested in real estate or know about the different, syndications or different options that they have? Or is it kind of well known, but it's just not, as well known as like, your 401ks, your stock market, bonds, things like that?
So you have to think of the medical professionals. They work long hours. They have to be very qualified at what they do. Um, there's a requirement that you have to keep your hours of training. And I work in the surgery. We've done surgery the last 12 hours or longer. So that person is not going to have the ears to listen, or even if somebody brings that information to them. So you have to make it really easy for them to absorb that. Now, as far as there are people that's what they do, educate specifically medical professionals, and that's what I'm doing. So when I open a conversation to them, a lot of them don't know what a syndication is. A lot of them have heard of real estate investing, but they think that I don't want to be a landlord. I don't want to, like, be receiving calls in the middle of the night. I have, I have limited amount of time with my family and my and free time. So that's kind of what they know. So because of it, a lot of them, they just get like, I don't want to know more. Like, they hear stories like a person that got one rental and it was destroyed. Yeah, if you put in all your eggs and that's 100%, you have 100% chance to be occupied and 100% to be destroyed or occupied. So to answer your question, it depends what they are presented with. They're obviously very smart, and they do want to, like you and I, they do want to build wealth, and they want to step away from their primary job. Maybe not fully, because people like medical people tends to love their job, but they're presented with what you give them. They are absorbent to what you give them. So there are some groups and some niches that are highly pretty much targeted. The niche that I'm targeting is CRNAs, which are certified registered nurse anesthetists. Most people don't even know what that is.
I have
Most
no clue.
Americans, yeah. They are, and they are high earners, and they are pretty much, they're nurses. They are specialized in with specialty training for anesthesia. So we administer anesthesia. That niche is like probably under targeted when it comes to being presented with opportunities to invest, because one, most investors don't know what they are, where to find us, or how to address us. So I am a CRNA. I know what it takes to be one. I know what you do. I know what it took you to get there as far as the investment that you put in. And I also know that you're highly intelligent and want to create passive income. So that, again, you can go and talk about, just in a medical facility, you can open the topic of real estate investment, and you will find some people that are already killing it, and there are some people that are like curious about it. So a lot of it is like, hey, I'm gonna deploy this source of information, and then let's take it in a one-on-one, because I want to make sure I'm addressing the specific questions.
I love it. I'm always curious too, right? When we start talking about raising money, how people are thinking about reaching, their target audience and doing different things. How are you thinking about doing? Like, how are you planning on getting in front of, the CRNAs, in front of other investors, getting the message out there, educating them? Like, what are some of the tactics you're either currently doing or thinking about doing in the future?
I have been reaching out to my fellow CRNAs for quite some time. I can mention one of them is for about 6 years, just showing what I'm doing, showing how I'm progressing. And then there's groups that we are specifically for CRNAs that are already in the real estate investing. So I try to be very contributed there. I also have been, when last year, when there was a lot of or CRNA fellows that were in distress because they lost their job, I reached out to the group, and I had over 180 people reaching out, because I was given a P&L and some of the financial type of things that I was going through as well. So I offered that tool, and I sent it to over 180 people, CRNAs. So from there, I built a follow-up email to just see how things are going. And then organically, people have been reaching out to me. So I have a database where I keep communication with them. We have a newsletter that is about to deploy. And it just word of mouth. People talks about it. I had one call, one text one day from one CRNA. She's like, "Hey, I met a guy here," and she's also a traveler, so she goes to different hospitals. We met, I think, in Kentucky, and she was in New York, and she's like, "I met a guy. There's a CRNA here. I think he knows you. He thinks he said that there's a CRNA that real estate was her passion, and I thought of you." So just them, like people just thinks of you as that person that, real, to make the link. So sure enough, he has been following me again through social media. We've never met. I never met him, but because of the message that I keep sending, the name just, came to mind. So that's and we take like so many calls on one-on-one, just to, because some CRNAs want to do flips. Some of them want to do buy and hold. So since we don't, stuff like that, we are always welcome to, just give them our opinion and revise their business plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what you said, whether you realize it or not, is just understanding who, your target person is, and just understanding where they are, where they hang out, and what they're doing, and how to communicate with them is so important. So if you know where, the CRNAs, what groups they're on, and you already have a network and you can kind of tap into that already, I think it's super important. Where, I've always said, I've got a good buddy of mine now, his name's Ryan Daigle. He came from the tech world, and I was like, I don't think you understand how lucky you are. I was like, you can tap into all the different, tech software type people. You know who they are. You came from that world. You were a CTO for a startup. You worked there for 15 years. You speak their language, and you can just be the bridge from the tech world to the real estate world. Whereas like John and myself really don't have that, because we started in it so early and we didn't have that professional niche to transition from. So I think it's really important, as people kind of examine, where they're coming from or who they are, of kind of taking stock of like, what kind of community can you tap into, who can you target, who can you relate to, type of thing. Because the better you can relate and they can relate to you, the more likely they're going to want to talk to you, learn from you, and potentially invest with you. So I think it's really interesting to hear how you've done all that. When you're starting to get into these syndication stuffs, are you looking to like buy deals yourself and raise the money and scale up? Or are you looking to do like JV structures, like you had said, where you're going to raise money with other operators? How are you approaching that scenario? Because I think people are always, have a lot of different options to go through and never really sure how to go about doing it.
Yeah, so we have joined a team that already has proven record. They already done several syndications, and that's one thing that if you're coming in and as a, because now we're considered newbies, even though we've been doing the other type of assets for years. So coming into the syndications, we have to find a mentor and a team that is going to again talk about avoiding mistakes. And now it's not just our money, it's other people's money, and I don't mind. I don't want to lose money, but I don't mind if I have to, if it's my own. So when it comes to handling other people's money and ways of build their legacy, I want to be very responsible. So because of that, we have paid for mentorship and joint teams that have proven record. So it's not just me doing this by myself. Definitely, we're open for joint ventures. And if you analyze some of the deals, sometimes making it a syndication just doesn't make sense. That if you run the numbers in that way, it's just never going to give you a good scenario to present to your investors. So we also are looking for joint ventures. We haven't offered a few of them, and we just running the numbers. We have letter of LOIs in place, so we're just waiting to hear. That's why we keep all of investors or potential investors warm and informed, so that when the opportunity presents, we are ready to go. But yeah, we are pretty open to do joint ventures as well as syndications.
Awesome, love it. I think that's a great place to wrap up. So Maricela, thank you so much for coming on. If people want to get in touch with you, follow, connect with you, learn more about you, where can they do all that stuff?
Thank you. Well, I'm active on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So my name, and you should be able to link you into our website as well.
Awesome. Guys, definitely go check her out. Go connect with her on all the different platforms. Going to do so myself. But thank you, everybody, so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. If you are not already subscribed, it would mean the world to John and I if you would do so. And if you are, please send it to someone that would get a tremendous amount of value from this episode. Once again, Maricela, thank you so much for coming on. This was fantastic.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.